Two of the most common pills in America sit in the same weekly organizer in millions of homes. One is for blood pressure, one is for cholesterol. On their own, both are considered safe, but above a certain dose, taken together, they can quietly break down muscle tissue, and the person swallowing them every morning is almost never warned. The blood pressure pill in that story is amlodipine, and that hidden interaction is only one of several that most patients on this medication are never told about clearly. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will know which of these cautions actually matter, which one you have probably been worrying about for no reason, and exactly what to do about each one. I spend my working life in the emergency room, and amlodipine is one of the medications I see most often on the lists patients hand me. It is prescribed to tens of millions of Americans, and for good reason. It works, it is inexpensive, most insurance and Medicare plans cover it for pennies, and it spares people from many of the harsher side effects of older blood pressure drugs. I am not here to scare you away from it. I am here to do the opposite. The people who do best on this medication, in my experience, are almost always the ones who understand a handful of specific things about it. So instead of handing you 5 scary rules, I am going to rank these cautions for you, from the one that has been the most oversold to the one that quietly does the most damage. I will give you a simple home tool to catch problems early, and I will bust one myth that has made a lot of people afraid of their own breakfast for no reason. First, 30 seconds on what this pill is actually doing, because the mechanism explains every single caution that follows. Picture one of your arteries as a flexible garden hose. Wrapped around that hose is a thin layer of muscle, and that muscle squeezes to control how wide the hose stays open. The signal that tells the muscle to squeeze is calcium flowing into those muscle cells. Amlodipine belongs to a family called calcium channel blockers, and its job is simple. It blocks that calcium signal, so the muscle relaxes its grip, the hose widens, blood flows through with less resistance, and the pressure inside comes down. That is the entire trick. No calcium signal, no squeeze, lower pressure. Here is a detail almost nobody explains, and it matters more than it sounds. Amlodipine is a remarkably slow, steady medication. Once you swallow a dose, it hangs around in your body for roughly a day and a half to 2 days before even half of it clears. Think of it less like a light switch and more like a slow-draining reservoir. That slowness is good news and a warning at the same time. The good news is that this pill is forgiving. If you forget a dose one morning, your blood pressure does not come crashing back that afternoon, because so much medication is still on board. The warning is that its effects, including the side effects, build up gradually over the first week or two, and do not wash out overnight. So if you notice something new after starting it, or after a dose change, do not expect it to vanish the day you skip a pill. The medication moves slowly, and your judgment about it has to move slowly too. Now let us start the ranking, and I am going to begin with the caution you have almost certainly heard about, because I want to take some fear off your plate right away. Grapefruit. For years, patients have been told to treat grapefruit like poison the moment they start a blood pressure pill. Here is where it gets interesting. Grapefruit contains natural compounds called furanocoumarins that block an enzyme in your gut wall called CYP3A4, and that enzyme is one of the main tools your body uses to break medications down before they reach your bloodstream. Block the enzyme, and more of the drug slips through. For some calcium channel blockers, that effect is dramatic. Amlodipine's cousin, a drug called felodipine, can have its blood levels multiply several times over with grapefruit juice. That is a genuinely major interaction. But amlodipine is not felodipine, and this is the part that got lost. When researchers actually measured what grapefruit juice does to amlodipine specifically, the effect on blood levels was small, and the effect on actual blood pressure was minimal. The interaction is real on paper, but for amlodipine, it is one of the weakest in its entire drug class. So if you have been anxiously pushing grapefruit away for years while taking this specific pill, you have probably been worrying about the wrong fruit. A normal serving is unlikely to cause you any trouble. I would still keep it modest, and I would still say this out loud to your pharmacist, because if you happen to be on felodipine or a couple of other medications, the answer changes completely. But for the millions of you on amlodipine, this is the caution that has been the most oversold. That is one worry you can likely set down today. The ones that come next are the ones I actually want you paying attention to. Which brings me to the interaction I opened with, the one that almost never makes it into the conversation at the pharmacy counter. If you take amlodipine and you also take a cholesterol medication, I need you to listen closely to this next part. Certain statins, specifically simvastatin and lovastatin, are broken down by that very same gut enzyme, CYP3A4. Amlodipine competes for that enzyme. So when you take amlodipine alongside simvastatin, less of the statin gets cleared, and its level in your blood climbs higher than intended. And high statin levels carry a specific risk, which is muscle breakdown, ranging from ordinary aches all the way to a rare but serious condition where damaged muscle can injure the kidneys. This is not a fringe theory. The concern is well recognized enough that the Food and Drug Administration set a hard rule about it. If you take amlodipine, your simvastatin dose should not exceed 20 milligrams a day, and there are similar limits on lovastatin. Yet I regularly meet patients taking amlodipine right alongside 40 or 80 milligrams of simvastatin, because two different doctors adjusted two different prescriptions and no one connected them. So here is your action, and it is a small one. Pull out your pill bottles tonight. If one of them says amlodipine and another says simvastatin or lovastatin, look at the numbers. If the simvastatin is above 20 milligrams, do not stop anything on your own, but call your pharmacist this week and simply ask, is this combination within the safe dose limit for me? That one phone call is free, it takes 5 minutes, and it is exactly the kind of thing a good pharmacist is there for. If you develop new, unexplained muscle aches, tenderness, or weakness, especially in the large muscles of your thighs and shoulders, that is worth reporting promptly. Now, a pattern interrupt, because I want you to see how ordinary this danger looks. The next caution is not exotic either. It is hiding in the cold and flu aisle of every drugstore in the country. Many over-the-counter cold and sinus remedies contain decongestants, usually pseudoephedrine or phenylephrine, and those ingredients work by tightening blood vessels to shrink swollen nasal tissue. But your blood vessels do not stay in your nose. Tightening them raises your blood pressure everywhere. Picture amlodipine gently pressing the brake pedal to widen your vessels, and then a decongestant stamping on the gas at the same time. The two fight each other, and for some people the result is a blood pressure spike that undoes days of steady control. These ingredients are tucked into dozens of combination products with cheerful names that do not warn you. So the habit I want you to build is simple. Before you buy anything for a cold, a sinus headache, or allergies, turn the box over, read the active ingredients, and if you see pseudoephedrine or phenylephrine, ask the pharmacist for a blood pressure-friendly alternative. There almost always is one. There is a quieter version of this in the pain aisle too. Common anti-inflammatory painkillers, the ones you know as ibuprofen and naproxen, do not interfere with amlodipine through the enzyme. They work against it a different way, by causing your body to hold on to sodium and fluid, which nudges blood pressure up and blunts what your medication is trying to do. An occasional dose for a headache is not the issue. The problem is the person quietly taking them every single day for an aching knee or back, wondering why their blood pressure will not come down no matter how the medication is adjusted. If that is you, the fix is not a bigger blood pressure pill. It is a conversation about safer, long-term pain options. Acetaminophen, for instance, does not carry the same effect. Let me shift from what you swallow to how you move, because the next caution sends more of my older patients to the emergency room than all the others combined. It is standing up too fast. Here is the mechanism in plain terms. When you are lying down or sitting, your blood is settled low in your body. Normally, the instant you stand, the muscle around your leg vessels clamps down to push blood back up to your brain against gravity. But amlodipine's whole job is to keep those vessels relaxed. So for a few seconds after you rise, that push is weaker, blood pools in your legs, and your brain briefly runs short. That is the wave of lightheadedness, the gray swimming feeling, the moment you have to grab the counter. For a younger person, it is a nuisance. For an older adult with fragile bones, it is how a quiet Tuesday morning turns into a broken hip, and a broken hip in your 70s or 80s can begin a long slide in a person who was independent the day before. The good news is that this one is almost entirely preventable, and it costs nothing. Make every position change a two-step move instead of one. When you wake, sit on the edge of the bed and count slowly to 30 before you stand. When you get out of a chair, plant a hand on something solid, rise, and pause until the world is steady before your first step. Be especially deliberate in the bathroom, where hard surfaces and tight spaces punish a stumble, and give yourself an extra moment standing up after a hot shower, because heat widens your vessels even further and stacks on top of the medication. And stay ahead on fluids. When you are even a little dehydrated, these drops get worse. If you find yourself genuinely dizzy on standing more often than not, that is not something to silently tolerate. It is a specific, fixable signal to bring to your doctor, because sometimes the dose or the timing can be adjusted. That naturally leads to alcohol, because it pulls several of these levers at once. I am not going to tell you that a drink and this pill can never coexist, because for most people they can. What I want you to understand is the stacking. Alcohol lowers blood pressure further in the short term. It dehydrates you and it dulls your balance and coordination directly. Layer that on top of a medication already relaxing your vessels, and the dizzy on standing risk we just talked about climbs sharply, especially on a nighttime trip to the bathroom on unsteady legs. For most people, keeping it to roughly 1 drink a day for women and up to 2 for men stays reasonable. Where I ask for more caution is if you have had falls before, if you take other medications that make you drowsy, or if you tend to get up in the dark. Heavy, regular drinking does something worse over time too. It pushes your baseline blood pressure back up, working directly against the pill you take every morning to bring it down. Now we arrive at the caution I have saved for last, because it is the one most people get exactly backwards, and getting it right can change how you feel every day. It is swelling in the ankles and feet. A large share of people on amlodipine notice it. The shoes feel tight by evening. A sock leaves a deep ring, and press a thumb into the skin above the ankle, and it leaves a little dent that lingers. Here is the mistake I see constantly. People assume swelling means their body is holding too much water, so either they suffer through it thinking it is just age, or they get started on a water pill to flush it out. And with amlodipine, that is usually the wrong move, because this swelling is not extra water in your body at all. Let me show you why, with the plumbing again. Amlodipine widens the small arteries feeding your tissues far more than it widens the small veins draining them. So think of a sink where someone has opened the faucet wide but left the drain the same narrow size. Fluid arrives faster than it can leave, pressure builds in the tiniest vessels, and a little water gets pushed out into the surrounding tissue of your lower legs. It is a pressure mismatch in the plumbing, not a flood in the whole house. This is exactly why a water pill so often disappoints here. A diuretic empties water from your entire system, but it does nothing about the faucet and drain mismatch in your legs, so the swelling stays while you make more trips to the bathroom. So what actually works? This is where the real options live, and they are worth a genuine conversation. The first is dose. This swelling is dose-related, so a lower dose that still controls your pressure often shrinks it. The second is elegant, and it is one of the most common strategies in modern blood pressure care. Adding a certain type of partner medication, an ACE inhibitor or an ARB, relaxes those draining veins and evens out the pressure. Going back to the sink, it widens the drain to match the faucet, and the overflow settles, all while improving your pressure control overall. The third option is switching to a different medication entirely. And alongside any of those, simple measures help. Put your feet up when you sit, staying active so your calf muscles pump fluid back upward, and compression stockings if your doctor agrees they fit your situation. But here's the part I most need you to hear, because it is where reassurance and vigilance meet. Not all leg swelling is the harmless plumbing kind, so learn to tell them apart. Amlodipine swelling is usually in both legs about equally. It builds through the day, and it comes with no trouble breathing. The swelling that worries me is different. If the swelling is mostly in one leg, or if it arrives together with shortness of breath, especially when you lie down flat at night, or with a sudden jump in weight of several pounds over a few days, that is not the medication being a nuisance. That can be a sign the heart or another system needs urgent attention, and it deserves same-day medical care, not a wait and see. That single distinction, both legs and breathing fine versus one leg or breathless, is one of the most useful things you can carry out of this video. While we are on side effects people quietly endure, here is one almost no one connects to this pill. The gums. Amlodipine can cause the gum tissue to overgrow, creeping up over the teeth, and it can happen even at low doses. It tends to be worse where plaque builds up, so people blame their brushing and never suspect the medication. If your gums have been swelling or growing since you started, tell both your doctor and your dentist that you take amlodipine. Better cleaning helps, and if it is significant, a dose change or a different drug can reverse it. It is a small thing, but it is the kind of small thing that goes unexplained for years. Now let me hand you the tool I promised, because noticing beats guessing. Your job as a patient on this medication is to become a quiet observer of your own body, and you only need 2 simple logs. The first is a 7-day blood pressure log. Once or twice a day, at roughly the same times, sit quietly for 5 minutes first, back supported, feet flat, arm resting at heart level, no caffeine or exercise in the half hour before. Take 2 readings a minute apart and write them down. A week of numbers tells your doctor infinitely more than 1 nervous reading in a clinic. The American Heart Association considers blood pressure at or above 130/80 to be high. But do not chase any single number. You are looking for the pattern. The second log is even simpler, a symptom diary. Jot the day and time whenever you feel dizzy on standing, notice swelling, or feel your heart flutter. Patterns hide in timing, and that page turns a vague worry into something your doctor can actually act on. And since I promised to answer it, when should you take it? A large study of thousands of patients compared taking blood pressure medication in the morning versus the evening, and found no meaningful difference in heart attacks or strokes either way. So the best time to take amlodipine is simply the time you will reliably remember every single day. Consistency beats clock watching. Pick an anchor, like brushing your teeth, and tie the pill to it. Let me put the urgency in order so you know what to do and when. Most of what we covered is monitor and mention, note it in your diary, and raise it at your next visit. Some things deserve a phone call this week rather than waiting, like the statin dose question, cold medicine with a decongestant, or swelling that is bothering you. A few things mean be seen promptly, the same day, at your doctor's office or an urgent care clinic, like frequent near falls or new muscle pain and weakness. And a small set means do not wait at all. Swelling in one leg with shortness of breath, chest pressure, fainting, weakness on one side of the body, or trouble speaking, call 901 and do not drive yourself. One firm line before we recap. Please do not stop amlodipine on your own because of anything you heard today. Stopping a blood pressure medication suddenly can let your pressure rebound and climb fast, sometimes dangerously, which is riskier than any caution on this list. Everything here leads to the same door. A short, specific conversation with your doctor or pharmacist, not a decision made alone at your kitchen table. So, if you remember nothing else, remember this shape. Check your bottles for the amlodipine and simvastatin pairing and its dose limit. Read the label before any cold or pain remedy. Stand up in 2 steps, not 1. And when swelling shows up, ask whether it is the harmless both legs kind or the one leg breathless kind that cannot wait. That is the whole map. The medication itself does its quiet, faithful work every morning, protecting your brain, your heart, and your kidneys from the long strain of high pressure. Your part is just this handful of small, informed attentions. Here is your one step for today, and only one, because you do not need perfection, you need a start. Walk over to where your pills live and read the labels, tonight. Just look at what is actually in the bottles and whether any pairing on this list is sitting there. That is it. If this helped you see your own medicine more clearly, pass it along to someone who has taken this pill for years without ever having this conversation. A parent, a spouse, a neighbor. And if you have felt the swelling, the dizziness, or the muscle aches we talked about, say so below, because the person who reads it may finally understand what their own body has been telling them. Take care of yourself, take this medication thoughtfully, and I will see you soon.